Phrasing is one of the most important skills in DJing, but it's also one of the most confusing for beginners. And if you don't understand it properly, then your mixes will always sound messy. In this video, I'm going to explain phrasing for DJs in the clearest way possible. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly how phrasing works, how DJs know when to start mixing, and honestly, you'll never need to watch another video about phrasing ever again. My name is Blakey, I'm a DMC champion, and I've helped thousands of DJs level up through my online courses and YouTube videos. So let's get into it. Right here, I've got two house tracks loaded into the decks, and I'm going to start mixing them slightly out of phrase. And you're going to hear why this is such a big problem. Now, the track on the left deck is about to go into the drop, but this track is still in the breakdown. And now this track is about to go into the drop. So even though we've beat matched these two tracks correctly, there's a huge misalignment in the energy of the tracks. With these two tracks, in this scenario, the ideal situation is both tracks drop at the same time. And lining up the drops together would be a perfect example of good phrasing. We had this track drop, but this track was still in the breakdown. So the people on the dance floor won't quite know what to do because there's a mismatch in the energy of both the tracks. Fundamentally, this is why phrasing is so important. This is something that beginner DJs accidentally do all the time. And even if your beat matching is correct, your mix will still sound wrong if the phrasing is off. This is what two tracks sound like when they're phrased correctly. Both tracks have dropped at the same time, so the energy of both the tracks match. Now in this video, we're going to be using the DDJ Flex 4 controller from Pioneer DJ with the Rekordbox software. But honestly, no matter what software or DJ hardware you're using, you're still going to be able to understand exactly how phrasing works in this video. And if you're not sure what equipment you need to get started as a DJ, I've created this completely free beginner DJ setup guide, which will tell you exactly what you need and how everything connects. If you'd like to download that for free, then just click the link in the description. Now, all modern dance music is built in sections, and I have a techno track loaded into the deck in Rekordbox. And if you take a look here at the complete overview waveform of the track in the software, you can see that there are peaks and troughs throughout the song. These sections right here are called the breakdowns. That's where all of the drums and the bass are taken out of the track, and it gives a moment for the song to breathe, after which it will then build up into another drop, which is these sections here. And if you're mixing dance music, this is going to be pretty universal. Other genres such as indie, rock and roll, country, and maybe even some older disco music might not have such rigid rules. But when it comes to modern dance music, these sections are very common. This track is a drum and bass track, and you can see a very similar pattern to the techno track. Dance music is built in sections, and crucially, this music has been designed to be mixed. The intro is there so that you have a bit of time to get the track aligned before bringing it into the mix. And the breakdown is there to give you a moment to allow the music to breathe at multiple points during your DJ set. And of course, the drop is there to build tension and energy before releasing that tension through the drop. Now, the key thing with understanding phrasing is understanding how many beats and bars have to pass before a new phrase is entered. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do some counting along with this track. I'm going to play the track that I've got loaded on this deck, and I'm going to put a counter on the screen that will count along with every beat that passes. And a new phrase will be entered after every 32 beat section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. At the end of this 32 beat section, listen to how the music changes. So we've got more hi-hats and percussion coming into the track. Once you understand how to count the beats, you then need to learn how to count the bars. Now, a bar is simply 4 beats. And because there are 32 beats in a phrase, that means there are 8 bars in a phrase. So now I'm going to play this same track, and I'm going to keep the beat counter on the screen, but I'm also going to introduce a bar counter. Now, what I find when it comes to teaching beginner DJs about phrasing is some DJs prefer to count beats, some DJs prefer to count bars. So it's really up to you which one you prefer counting, but crucially, neither is right or wrong. So now let's quickly count the beats and the bars to a drum and bass track. And because a drum and bass track is faster in tempo, that means the beats will count quicker. And you'll see that with the beats and bar counter that I'm going to put on the screen. So at the end of this 32 beat phrase, we're going to go into a breakdown section. So the same rule applies to drum and bass music. The counting just happens quicker. At the end of every new phrase, something in the track will change. That could be some new drums are added, like percussion or hi-hats. That could be that some vocals start to come into the track, or maybe the vocals are brought out of the track. This could also be that the breakdown starts. That's where all of the energy and the bass and the drums are taken out of the track to create a moment of tension release. Or a new phrase could be the end of a breakdown and it goes into a drop. The key thing to understand here is that every 32 beats, something in the track changes. That's why at the end of every 32 beat phrase, that is when you should press play on the track that you're mixing in. And that's actually a point that I get asked about all the time as a DJ educator. Beginners often struggle right at the start of their journey with, when do I press play on the track that I'm mixing in? And the simple answer to that is you press play on the track that you're mixing in at the end of a 32 beat phrase. This is the easiest and simplest way of making sure that both of your tracks are aligned and mixing in phrase. Now let's quickly talk about the phrasing in hip hop music, because it is slightly different, but the same core principles still apply. So whereas with dance music, the sections are usually intro, breakdown, drop, and then an outro. Hip-hop music has slightly different sections. So with hip-hop, you're going to have an intro, and then usually a verse, and then a chorus, and then another verse, and then another chorus, and then a third verse and a third chorus, and then the outro. So rather than having breakdowns and drops, you've got choruses and you've got verses. Hip-hop is still phrase-based, but the sections are different. When it comes to hip-hop, the best place to start mixing your next track in from is usually the chorus. The chorus on a hip-hop track might be 16 beats long, but it can also be 32 beats long. It can differ from track to track, and the length of the sections in hip-hop music are slightly less rigid than dance music. And that's why knowing the music you're playing, when you're playing hip-hop especially, is super important. Because once you know the music, you will know instinctively how long that chorus lasts for, and therefore how long you have to mix in the track on the other deck. Because by the time the chorus on the other track is over, you want that track to be out of the mix. You don't want the next verse on the hip hop track to still be going over the track that you're mixing in on the other deck. So understanding your hip hop music that you're playing is very important, but phrasing is still incredibly relevant in hip hop music. Now, trust me, when it comes to phrasing, you will not have to count along with the beats forever. If you see a DJ up on stage at a festival, I can guarantee you that they're not mixing and counting along with the beats of every song that they're playing. This stuff just becomes instinctive once you learn it, understand it, and also start practicing DJing. This is something that becomes second nature very quickly. Phrasing becomes something that you feel and you expect. Your brain will start predicting the changes naturally, and that will happen faster than you think. It just takes a little bit of practice. Okay, next up, we're going to take this tech house track on the left deck and we're going to set some hot cues, and we're also going to write down on the hot cue section in Recordbox the name of the hot cue. So we're going to set a hot cue on the intro, we're going to set one on the breakdown, we're going to set one on the drop, we're going to set one on the second breakdown, the second drop, and you can even give these hot cues names inside Recordbox and Serato or whatever DJ software you're using. And you can even color code them, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Now, the first thing to do, and this is something that I do with every song that I have inside my DJ software, I set the first hot cue on the first kick drum. Now here on the DDJ Flex 4, we actually have a hot cue pad mode, and you can see that that is illuminated here, which means that we have that selected. And right here, we've got 8 completely empty hot cues. And we can tell that they're empty because none of these pads are lit up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually zoom in on the waveform in Recordbox by pressing the plus icon on my keyboard. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that that playhead position is right up against that kick drum. And we can do that by moving the jog wheel here. So now that playhead position is right up against that kick drum. And the first thing I'm going to do is set hot cue number 1 on that kick drum. So now that pad is lit up, and take a listen to what happens when I press that hot cue. It triggers the song from that position. So now if we go over to Recordbox and right click on this hot cue that's just been set, you can see that we can add comments. Let's click that and let's call this intro. And now what I'd also like to do is I'd like to color code this hot cue by right clicking again. And I'm going to color code this as light green. Now, color coding is something that's completely optional, but it's probably a good idea for you to come up with your own color coding system for your hot cues, because this is going to help you out in the future, because you can simply glance at the software and you know which section of the track that hot cue is assigned to. Now, if you're a beginner DJ and you would like a clear step-by-step path that shows you exactly what you should be practicing and in what order without feeling overwhelmed, then you should check out my Ultimate Beginner DJ course. I've spent the last year talking to thousands of beginner DJs to try and understand exactly what it is that they've been struggling with. And this course has been built to fix all of those problems. It's been built to help you go from feeling overwhelmed and confused to mixing confidently as quickly as possible. If you'd like to check it out, then just click the first link in the description. Now here is a super useful hack to allow you to jump through the track perfectly in time by 32 beat increments, which means that we will jump through the track directly to the next phrase. Let me show you. So here on the DDJ Flex 4, we have a beat jump pad mode right here. So let's click that. And now you can see inside Recordbox exactly what each of these pads does. So all we need to do is press forward 32 beats. And that has now jumped forward in the track by 32 beats and it's kept it perfectly in time. So I'm going to press this again and then again and again. And now we are right at the start of the breakdown on this track. When it comes to setting hot cues, using beat jump is the perfect way of not only setting them faster, but also making sure that you're jumping through the track and keeping your phrasing perfectly aligned. So now let's go back to the hot cue pad mode and let's set the breakdown section on hot cue number 4. Now you could set the breakdown hot cue on any of the empty pads, but personally, my system is I like to have the breakdown on pad number 4, the intro on pad number 1, and then I like to put the first drop on pad number 5, but really you could do this any way you like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Recordbox, right click here, add a comment, call this one breakdown 1, and then I'm going to right click it again and I'm going to change the color to a light blue. So now when I press pad number 4, it will start playing the song from that breakdown. It's important to note as well that all of this work we're doing by saving the hot cues, giving them names and giving them colors, this will save forever. So next time I load in this track, all of these hot cues will appear, as will all of the information that we've written into the hot cues in Recordbox. So this is a great system for not only setting hot cues on your tracks in your DJ software, but also getting a vibe and an understanding of the phrasing of the track that you're setting these hot cues on. Because whilst the 32 beat phrasing rule applies to basically all dance music, the sections of the track will differ from song to song. Some tracks will have 3 breakdowns, some will only have 1. Some will have a very long intro, whereas some will have a very short intro. The 32 beat phrasing rule still applies. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of a mix where the phrases are perfectly aligned. And we're actually going to start by playing the track on this deck. And the moment this track goes into the breakdown, I'm actually going to press play on the track on this deck, which is also right at the start of the breakdown. Now the breakdown sections on both of these tracks last for 32 beats. And what that means is at the end of those breakdowns, both of these tracks are going to drop at the same time. This is a really good but simple example of what good phrasing in a DJ set sounds like. When you see drum and bass DJs performing double drops over and over again, which is when you take two tracks and make them drop at the same time, like we're going to do with this mix here, that skill is built all around getting the phrasing right. So take a listen to what it sounds like when we've got two tracks that go into the breakdown together and then drop at the same time. It just sounds right and it just sounds coherent. So that right there is an example of breakdown to breakdown mixing, ensuring that both tracks go into the drop at the same time afterwards. And once you actually understand phrasing and you start to practice mixing, this will actually start to become second nature way quicker than you think. Now, the good news is, if you're playing two tracks and you realize during the mix that one of them is about to go into the drop when the other one isn't, there is a way of fixing this live on the fly. And it's using a tool that I've already shown you in this video, and that's Beat Jump. I use Beat Jump all the time live during my sets to ensure that the phrases and the sections align perfectly. So right here, we've got two tracks mixing. But if you take a look at the track on the left deck, it's about to go into the breakdown section too early. So all I need to do is press Beat Jump back 32 beats. And now this track has jumped back 32 beats, and watch what happens. The breakdowns are now going to align perfectly. We could even extend the breakdown on both of these tracks by pressing back 32 beats before the drop. So we've just extended the breakdown section by 32 beats, and both tracks are still going to drop at the same time. So now let's leave these tracks playing together. And we can see if we need to use Beat Jump live to align the sections. So you can see that both tracks are coming up to a breakdown section again, but the breakdown section on this track is a lot longer. But we can use Beat Jump to ensure that both tracks drop again at the same time. So I'm going to have to jump back 32 beats on the left deck so it doesn't drop yet. So you can see on the right deck, there's still a lot of breakdown to happen. And I'm just going to use Beat Jump back 32 beats on the left deck to make sure both of these drops align. So now both tracks are going to drop at the same time. So you can use Beat Jump live as a tool to make sure that the sections and phrases of your tracks align, even when you can see that they're not going to quite align during the mix as you're performing it live. If you don't already use Beat Jump during your DJ sets, it really is one of those features that when you start using it, you can't really go back. Beat Jump is actually one of the features that I use most in both Rekordbox and Serato, and I highly encourage you to try using it during your live sets if you realize that the phrases and sections on your tracks are not going to quite align. If a breakdown is going on for too long on one of your tracks and you want to ensure that the other track drops at the same time, then just go into the Beat Jump pad mode and jump back 32 beats. And just like I did in that mix, you might find that you need to beat jump back 32 beats again to make sure that the drops align. But this really is one of the most valuable tools at your disposal when it comes to phrasing and making sure that the sections of your tracks align perfectly. Once you start using beat jump live during your mixes, you realize that you are not trapped once you start mixing that track in. You can simply jump around the song to make sure that it's playing from the correct part. And once you start setting hot cues like we did on this track, you also are not tied in to only mixing the song from the start. You can not only trigger this track from different sections and phrases like the breakdown or the drop, but you could even trigger this track from the intro, go to the beat jump pad mode, and very quickly you can find yourself in the breakdown. Or go forward to the first drop. And you can start from that part of the track simply by using the beat jump controls. This is a huge upgrade, and it makes you see mixing and phrasing and lining up the sections of your tracks in a completely new way. Okay, so now I'm going to perform a short mix, and we're going to put everything that we've learned in this video into practice. And of course, I'm going to keep the beats and the bar counters on the screen, and I'm going to show you how you can use beat jump live to manipulate the sections and the phrases of the track that you're currently in. Now I'm going to start by playing this track on the right deck, and then when this track goes into the breakdown, I'm going to mix this track in also from the breakdown, and then both tracks will go into the drop at the same time. But from that point on, we're going to have to use beat jump live to keep the sections of the tracks coherent. So let's take a listen. Now the track on this deck is about to go into a breakdown at the end of this phrase, but we don't want it to. So I'm going to use beat jump back 32 beats to keep this track in the main section. And again, I'm going to jump back on the track on this deck to keep it in the main section so it doesn't go into the breakdown. So now the breakdown is about to happen on this track, and the breakdowns are going to align. Now we're going to need to jump back 32 beats on this track so it doesn't go into the drop yet. So now both tracks are going to drop at the same time, which is perfect. So now that you understand phrasing properly, the next step is learning how to put that into practice and building your first DJ set. So I recommend you watch this video next, where I show you exactly how to build your first DJ set as a beginner using only 5 tracks.